The optics of you and Fred would destroy your entire career.
It's Pretty Woman, but she's Richard Gere and you're Julia Roberts. You got destiny on your side.
Oh, I feel so scared.
Do you think that you have a different relationship with the projects that you produce versus just the ones that you act in?
Well, I very rarely now do anything that I don't produce,
Yeah,
so it's...
me either. People aren't asking me to be in their movies. I'm making my own.
Well, does that give you a certain level of freedom by itself?
Yeah, listen, I'm very well aware that this is an incredible luxury, not that was just handed to me, that I've worked really hard to get to, and I don't take that for granted, and I try to really understand that when I have the opportunity to do something that is as good as this is with somebody like Seth, that, you know, I really enjoy trying to do that as well as possible.
When you first heard about this project, found out about this role, I'm curious what it was that basically made you say, I need to be a part of this.
It was the fact that Seth and Charlize were in it. Sure. That was it.
Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron. I was sold. You know, put me in, coach.
Just seeing the Charlize and Seth's name on the email inspired me to open up that little PDF at the bottom and read the actual script. And then reading the script, it was just so funny. And knowing also the way that Seth works and having done smaller roles in some of his projects and how they just want everything to be so funny and they're willing to find stuff in the moment and to start off with such a great script and then to know how hard they work to make it better on the day. I was just dying to get into this film.
I just like to make stuff that I want to see.
Yeah.
That's ultimately how I kind of...
100%.
And get to work with people that you really want to work with.
Yeah, I think that's totally it. And if it's a movie that we think is like additive to the space and exciting and creatively ambitious, we will spend years and years trying to bring it to life. And especially, you know, if it's a movie that reminds you of the movies you liked when you were growing up, that's like something that I will spend, you know, extra resources and energy trying to achieve, you know?
Sure.
In order to write better for you, I should kind of get to know you better if you have a minute.
I actually have 7.
7 minutes in heaven.
And did you do any research into kind of the profession at all?
Yeah, I read about Body Man. My character, Tom, is a body man, which is basically an assistant to the Secretary of State, played by Charlize. So I read about him, and then I also spoke to a guy who played the body man on Veep.
Oh, Tony Hale, sure, yeah. That's great. And what did you kind of get from that conversation?
Mainly it was just cool talking to Tony Hale. No, I mean, we ended up just gossiping the whole time, actually. But I didn't think you were going to ask a follow-up question.
Fair enough. Well, actually,
yeah. I mean, there's really not much to learn. I mean, it's literally an assistant. There's a reason why it is an entry-level job.
Sure.
There's very little experience necessary for it.
Well, I like that you did the outreach, though. That's effort, right?
Yeah, I was like, I'm an actor. I should do some research.
Yeah,
and then I was like, it turns out I didn't need to do any at all.
Nice.
Like, literally, I'm carrying a satchel the whole time. That's it.
You got the job right there.
Yeah, just got to stay within like 5 feet at all times.
Sure.
You'll see. It's in the movie.
There you
That's
go.
it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, Jonathan Levine is a filmmaker who has a lot of openness, and Seth Rogen is obviously an improvisational master. Was that intimidating to come onto set against, or?
It's all, you always get butterflies, you know, this first day of school type feel, but my whole goal with every role that I've chosen after Straight Outta Compton is to prove to people that I'm here to stay. So you accept the challenge always, and Jonathan has such a he's so good at finding a balance between comedy and real life. And, you know, he could, at the same time while you're laughing, he's pulling at your heartstrings and you get a little emotional. And he just does so well with his films to find that balance. And so I'm happy to be a part of such an all-star cast with such a cool director.
Charlotte, I would like to endorse you to be the next president of the United States.
Oh my God.
You've been a great secretary.
State.
Which state again?
All of them?
This is a project that has been around for a while. If I'm not mistaken, it actually made like the 2011 blacklist.
It did.
Just because like the world has changed as much as it had since then, I'm curious how much the project changed.
The project that was on the blacklist, Dan Sterling wrote these 2 amazing characters, and all the kind of main things of the movie were very constant. You know, they knew each other when they were younger. She had compromised too much and needed to see what she, needed him to remind her who she wanted to be in the first place. And their romance that was like charged by their mutual kind of intellectual connection and spark, and that was always there. But of course, 2011, Obama was the president, so things changed in America. And we had to acknowledge those changes. It started as a challenge. We were a little scared because when we were writing it, things were happening so fast. It was the early days of the Trump administration. We just didn't know when people would be ready to laugh at what. But I think that, what we found was that people, for better or worse, started to get numb to the amount of information that was coming in, and we could kind of take a step back and comment on everything. In that way it evolved, but I think if you read that first script, you would see so much of what is great about the movie in it.
One collaboration I wanted to ask about in this film was just working with Andy Serkis, because his transformation here is awesome, and from what I understand, nobody really asked him to do it.
No, that was
Can you talk about that a little bit?
to him, yeah. The character, Parker Wembley has been in the script a very long time, actually, and we're just huge fans of Andy Serkis. I've met him a bunch of times over the years. He's just a great guy. We've talked about how great it would be to work together, and he's met many of the other people involved in the movie as well. And we offered him the role, and then he was like, okay, and then started sending ideas for like what he would look like, and we were like, what do you mean? Like, we thought he kind of looked a lot like Andy Serkis, but he was like, no, I got this whole thing, and we were just like, whatever, man.
It was impressive.
It was ridiculous. Yeah. And there were some days, because it was self-inflicted, there were some days, and this happens a lot in movies, where you think you're going to shoot a scene and then you don't, and then you shoot it the next day or something like that. And he would go through 6 hours of makeup or something like that, and then we'd just be like, oh, we're not going to get to it today. And he's just like, all right. And you're just like, dude, wow. He's truly one of the nicest dudes in the world, which is weird because he exclusively plays evil people. Yeah. He's like you. Yeah.
Andy Serkis made choices that nobody asked him to make, and it sounds like a negative thing, but as a director, actually, that's one of the most beautiful gifts you can give a director, because he really dove into the character and he really wanted to make it his own. And so one of the choices he did, actually the biggest thing, was that he decided to be in prosthetic makeup for 6 hours a day. Right. But you start to realize that this is how Andy Serkis accesses characters. If you think about Andy Serkis's career, it's facial expressions. It's very kind of primal stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that really helped him figure out this guy. And it was amazing for us, because for me, it reminded me of Coming to America or Dick Tracy, or movies where you're like, who is that guy? And that part of it becomes part of the fun of the movie.
Fred ends up with an unfortunate tattoo that he lives with because of his work. I'm curious, if you had to walk away with any tattoo of any project that you've been a part of, what would it be and why?
Oh, well, so I did a show called, with my husband, on Adult Swim, called NTSF SDSUV. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Paul Scheer. And that was our show, and it stood for National Strike Force San Diego Sports Utility Vehicle. So I imagine having those letters on my body would just be a huge mistake.
I guess it would be Meet the Patels. I mean, this isn't a funny answer, but Meet the Patels is a documentary I made about my family. Mm-hmm. So I have thought, if I got a tattoo, I'd get something that represents my mom and dad's villages in India.
Straight out of Compton. Yeah. It's just my family. It's my family legacy. And, my dad has always been against me getting tattoos, so I would get straight out of Compton right across.
The last time you got high was at a Swing Doctors concert. We had a situation.
Huh? I'm in so much trouble.
What's happened? Are they out of water?